The Outrageous Okana. I was worried at first when we started the episode it was going to be outrageous, but in a bad way. I think it mostly turned out outrageous in a good way.
Data, do you even know what a joke is?
Joe Piscopo helps Data become the king of comedy.
Show me what is funny.
All right, you're on.
But a fugitive on the ship is no laughing matter.
You will come with me now!
And he's being hunted by enemies who could trigger a war.
They're threatening to attack the Enterprise.
On Star Trek, The Next Generation.
I don't think I liked it as much as you. You liked it quite a bit, right?
Yeah, I really did, just because of how deep it gets. Because I don't know if I was expecting a generic, like, oh, this guy comes on board, he's Han Solo, and I thought like the episode was gonna put all their marbles into his basket, where like he carries and is in every scene. But no.
We both know that you've already scanned it. You know, I'm alone and empty. Truly a rare occasion for a man of my charm and talent.
He grew on me, but at first I'm like, he's Han Solo. That's his gimmick.
The episode definitely didn't put it all on him, but even though they didn't, if he didn't work, the episode still would have been bad. Like, because he was a major focus of it. So the fact that the actor's name was William Campbell, he played Okana pretty good, I think, for what his role was. He was charming. I could believe him as his character.
And thank you for beaming me here and enabling me to see a truly beautiful woman.
And they take this guy aboard just because his ship is broken down. Like, there's really no other reason. So they're like, yeah, sure, we're obligated to help you. And then as he comes aboard, immediately he shows off his charm and is trying to sleep with every female on the Enterprise, which later on they even say we don't care about that. So, okay, good for him, I guess, and good for those women.
I still think he was trying to sleep with Worf and Geordi.
That's a joke. It's funny.
Huh. Of course it is.
His first interaction on the ship with Data really sets the course for Data's character in this episode, because he's charming and trying to tell all these dry, sarcastic jokes that just go right over Data's head. And Data is kind of disappointed that he can't understand the humor. So he goes and talks to Whoopi Goldberg's character, who's making her return, Guinan.
You agree with Okana that I am missing a very important human factor.
I simply said that I've never seen you laugh.
I just love the idea of using Guinan as like a vessel for people to explain their problems to, because she's a bartender, and like people, you know, sing their woes to bartenders all the time. So it's like if she's like a different version of like Troy per se, where instead of like Troy goes to people, like they're like, oh, what's wrong? People go to Guinan.
You don't go to a bartender or go to a counselor for the same reasons. Like Troy more so represents like that counselor role, as like, so you're talking to your therapist or something, as to where a bartender, you're like, hey man, I'm really having trouble telling jokes. Can you help me out? You know?
Yeah, like I don't want a solution to my problems. I just want to tell you my problems. But I think Guinan does try to like help him a bit. Yeah.
What do I do?
But in your case, probably a smarter computer's in order.
Only been 2 episodes with Whoopi Goldberg, but I gotta say, impressive so far. I mean, both of her performances have been very helpful to the characters. If her role is just going to be to help develop other characters and along the way develop her own, I think that's a great use.
Yeah, her few scenes with Wesley and her other episode, and then like plenty of like involvement in this. Yeah, I dig it, and it's like this is a B plot that like it doesn't need to solve the A plot. You know what I mean? It's just something happening, and I'm okay with it, because what is it? It's character development, it's fun, and it's the holodeck, so I can't complain literally at all, because you know I like all those things.
So then Data uses the holodeck to try to figure out what comedy is and goes to a stand-up comic. The actor playing the stand-up comic, I think, did a good job. He references Jerry Lewis, who, sorry, don't know who that is. Over my head.
Yeah.
And I didn't find it very funny either.
Mr. Android, here, Keith, put him in your mouth. Come up, Mr. Where did he go? Where did Mr. Rowe?
But yeah, this stand-up comedian tries to teach Data about comedy, and Data speeds him up, which I thought was a funny little thing to like get the information more quickly.
Move to maximum speed.
By doing that, he doesn't understand like the timing of telling jokes, and it also fits Data because you know he can read it like information in an instant. So.
And then he takes it back to Guinan, but she's still not impressed, because comedy is all about timing, delivery, understanding why something is funny. And Data can steal the material, but he doesn't understand any of that. So it was very true to his character, I felt.
The guy says, I want a second opinion. The doctor says, okay, you're ugly too, but boom.
And then we go back to the main story where they have Okana on board for a while, and now these two different parties, these two different species, both want the Enterprise to surrender him to them. They don't reveal their reasons yet, but they both feel very strongly. And I really liked the touch where they go out of their way to kind of mockingly say they're not a threat. Maybe they go too far, but I like that they mention, yeah, they're not a threat at all, because that wasn't the point. And like so many times in Star Trek up to this point, it's like, uh-oh, huge threat when we don't need it. So I'm glad they didn't make it a threat.
They are now locking lasers on us.
Lasers?
Yes, sir.
Lasers can't even penetrate our navigation shields, don't they know that?
Oh, yellow alert for lasers. You know, when was the last time we've done that? Like, seems a little bit too, you know, like, calm it down a bit, guys. You shouldn't be that judgmental. It felt a little judgmental, a little bit, you know, like looking down their nose at these two others. You know what I mean? It should have been more matter of fact, where it's like, oh no, it's just lasers, not like, you know, Riker, like, oh, we haven't gone to yellow alert for lasers. You know what I mean? It's like just a little bit back. You know, you're Starfleet. You're supposed to be above all this.
I agree. And even later on when Picard brings it up to Okana, because Okana's like, are you going to be threatened by them? And he's like, no. Like, that was fine when he brought it up then, because he just quickly was like, no, they're not a threat. But here, they did kind of harp on it for a while. They probably just, you know, outside of the show logic, they probably wanted the audience to make sure the audience knew, like, they're not a threat. That's not what we're doing.
They even had, like, the scale comparison. The Enterprise was huge, and this little ship, you know, like, squaring up. It's like...
Yeah.
It's like, I think there's plenty of context clues. We just needed one scene where it's like, oh no, not a threat. Lasers have never penetrated the Enterprise. Delivered matter of fact.
So it's eventually revealed that the reason why these people want Okana turned over is because they accuse him of impregnating one of their daughters, and then for the other one, they're accusing him of stealing a very precious, renowned jewel.
I'm not going to apologize for the way I am or how I live my life. But, just for the record, I did not steal the Jewel of Thesia.
I did not believe him. I thought that he did impregnate this woman and steal this jewel. He even pulls out the jewel in the next scene as a kind of a misdirect. We're like, oh, this guy, he is just a no-good scoundrel.
Yeah.
That's where I got to give the show the biggest credit. So often we beg to not be ahead of the characters, and I was totally fooled.
Yes, I was way behind. And there's like a couple misdirects. One where he pulls out the jewel, like, oh, he does have the jewel. And the one where like, or like a little tease where it's like, it shows the one dude with the son. And the son's like, hey, you know, like, he's trying to get his dad. I thought he was telling him to calm down.
Our honor and prestige are at stake. We are prepared to take Okana by force and die in the doing of it if necessary.
I think he's trying to tell him that he didn't really do it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like maybe he was trying to tell his dad in that scene, like, this is the truth of what happened.
And they all beam into the Enterprise, they all get together, and that's when the twist is revealed.
The Jewel of Thesia has been taken into custody by its rightful heir. Me. I was to give it to Yanar as our pledge of marriage.
Okana was kind of like their messenger, going back and forth between them, and he got the jewel from the boy, who says he's the rightful heir of the jewel, to give it to the woman, but he was captured before that could happen.
Because that's kind of like his wedding proposal type thing.
Yeah, the twist worked well. I thought
it was great. It was a great
yeah.
twist. I loved, you know, I loved the whole resolution of this story.
Marry me.
Yes.
And the fact that this story was not what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a simple, prime directive, what do we do? you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do we do this? Do we do that? It's like, no, it's like this whole interpersonal, it's like the Enterprise just got caught up in it. You know what I mean? It's like they just decided to help this ship out. They think it's as simple, you know, like this guy on the run, but it's so much more layered or deep than that.
One weird thing about the episode that was very noticeable in the scene where Okana first beams onto the Enterprise, and then in this scene with the pregnant woman talking, there's just random horrific ADR.
I'd be most happy to do the work myself, Commander. I'm sort of the hands-on type.
I won't marry anyone.
A lot of her lines and a lot of Okana's lines when he first beamed on, they would be talking just fine, and then there'd be like 2 or 3 lines clearly poorly ADR'd. And I get it, it's an 80s show, like it happens a lot. Even I'm starting to notice it in today's shows too. Like
Really?
It's still pretty bad. I think it's one of those like Wilhelm scream effects. Like once you notice it, the glass breaking, you know, you can't go back. So that kind of weirded me out.
I just noticed Data's makeup in the last episode where it's like at his neck or in his arm. So, but you're like, oh, you ruined the
The
submersion.
immersion?
Yeah, the immersion. So I'm like, all right, I'll turn my brain off. So maybe that's what happened.
That's like my version of it, yeah.
Data gets to do stand-up comedy and like, all right, give us a typical audience for this crowd. And like he's up there and he's killing it.
I was so ugly as a child, they hung a pork chop around my neck.
Before he even finishes a sentence, like the crowd's already laughing. He's like,
I really liked the exchange of lines where Guinan said,
Being able to make people laugh is not the end-all and be-all of being human.
But there is nothing more uniquely human.
clearly that, I mean, communication, for one thing, is what makes humans unique. So humor is like an advanced version of that. So I really like that. However, I got to disagree with Guinan here. I mean, he could have just made a tougher audience. And yeah, maybe that won't make him fully understand humor, but like, what do stand-up comics always say? Like, you learn through bombing and eating shit on stage. Like, maybe if Data spent countless hours on stage in front of a really tough crowd, and maybe, because
but would Data understand the humor, though?
I think the way I'm interpreting Data, it's not that he can never do these things. He can adapt and learn stuff. He just, like, doesn't right now. So it's like, I think if he really worked at it, he could. At least that's how I'm reading his character.
But would he understand the context of the humor? Like, or maybe he would like, oh, or would he finally, oh, it's funny because of this? He's just not there yet?
Yeah, I mean, we could have a whole discussion on what is humor, but I think it's fair to say, like, there's a part of humor that you can't explain, like, why is that funny? But there's a lot of stuff about humor that you can explain, and that's why there's rules to comedy and rules to like how you write comedy shows. But there are things about humor you can explain to where Data could eventually catch on to, oh, this in this way is why this is funny. He's smart enough to understand that. It would just take him time. I could understand that maybe there is a part of humor that he will never understand, but you don't have to understand the whole thing.
I think the closest Data will get is with every joke that Data gets, he understands it, but then dissects it so it dies.
Yeah.
That's Data.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's fair. And that's kind of the ending of the episode.
Where it takes it too much, or like he overkills it. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, that's kind of Data's whole theme. He just starts explaining things, and everyone has to cut him off. I mean, was it this episode that Worf even hilariously cuts him off?
There was the one about the girl in the nudist colony that nothing looked good on.
We're ready to get underway, sir.
Yeah, because he tells a joke that actually makes them laugh, and then he just keeps going, and they're like, all right.
Warp factor, yeah.
Which was a nice little ending to the episode. So, yeah, I thought it was a nice episode. I liked it. I would kind of put it in the same category as like Haven from last season, which is like a fun little sitcom type episode. But with this one, it had some pretty nice character development for Data in there and a nice little story. So
yeah, anytime where I think it's something and then it flips it on its head and goes deeper. Anytime where I'm not like, oh, an electricity current flowed through the Enterprise and we saw it, but our characters didn't. The fact that like I'm not ahead of the story.
Yeah,
the story's ahead of me. And it's deeply layered where it's like, I want to go back and see if there's any clues to this.
Warp speed, sir. Please.
If you're new here, our Patron Takes is where our patrons over from our Patreon, you guessed it, let us know what they think of the episode, as well as ask us questions, predict how we're going to feel about it. We read these for the first time right now after discussing the episode, and we only get to read a few of them here in the video, but there's a whole discussion for every episode over on Patreon, so go sign up and check that out. This one's from Neil Shaunis. This is one of my all-time least favorite episodes. Okana is such a lame off-brand Han Solo, he makes Wesley look cool. We did comment on him. He's basically a Han Solo, Star-Lord, RPG default character.
Yes, yeah, but
I thought William Campbell's performance kind of like, he was able to get around that a little bit.
Yes, like he's given that like at the beginning, but as he goes on, I think he becomes a little bit more layered. I think.
And make Wesley look cool? That's where I draw the line. I can't get it on board with that.
I don't know about that. This one's from Timothy. I read that the guy playing Okana was one of the finalists to play Riker.
Oh.
Definitely with that beard he could have been.
I definitely could see that, especially if they wanted to go, I don't know the age difference, but he seems younger than Jonathan Frakes. So if they wanted to go with like a more young first officer, kind of like wet behind the ears, I could see that he could have been a good fit for that. So, And apparently William Campbell, or Billy Campbell, was also the star of The Rocketeer, which is a movie I've never seen but I've heard a ton about. John says The Rocketeer would be a great audience cut, by the way. Have you seen The Rocketeer?
I have not. No.
Yeah, I've heard about it a lot. I've heard it's one of the most like underrated Disney movies. It's not. I don't think it's animated. Obviously, if he stars in it.
No. I've seen the poster before. Like I remember being in high school. One of my teachers had like a Rocketeer poster, and I know Red Media talked about it, and I watched that video years ago and don't remember any of it. So similar to Star Trek Next Generation, we could rip off of that,
Yeah. So what do you guys think about that? Let us know.
Okay, this one's from Thicket Dweller. As it is my personal view, it doesn't matter, but this is the second worst episode of TNG, the worst being an episode to come. I feel that 99% of TNG is worthy, if not excellent. This one just rubbed me wrong. There are some excellent character moments, but to me, the story is flatter than paper. Excellent character moments, yes, but really? Story's flatter than paper? It's like I feel like the flatter than paper would be like just like, prime directive, like, oh, do we release this guy or to not and to who? But like I don't know.
My main guess would be if the episode to somebody, the main story part of it, if someone was able to predict that. Like if we had known 15 minutes in, oh, obviously this guy didn't actually do this, it's going to be something that could have been less entertaining. I think the fact that we got so hooked by that twist that, that helped. But even at that point, even if I thought it was predictable, yeah, I mean, there are episodes in this series that I already think are much worse than this. One of them we just watched recently, the first episode of the season. So yeah, would disagree with that.
I don't know. Hindsight, knowing the twist, would it be obvious? Like, oh, this guy's banging all these people, but like a woman comes on pregnant, like, oh, obviously he didn't make because they're expecting it to. I don't know. This one's from James H. I feel the whole comedy thing suffers from the fact that they chose to cast the unfunniest comedian of the 80s, Joe Piscopo, and have him imitate the unfunniest comedian of the 50s, Jerry Lewis.
So I guess Joe Piscopo was a comedian then.
There you go. That answers that.
And I'm sorry, I don't know who Jerry Lewis is. I've heard the name, but yeah, I mean, I thought the guy was fine. I didn't laugh at any of his stuff or anything.
No, but I just find it funny if everyone has the same consensus that they chose like an unfunny person to like teach comedy to Data and have him imitate an unfunny person from the 50s. Of course, Data was doomed from the start.
This is from Joe. Data is right. You're a droid and I'm annoyed. Barely qualifies as a joke and is in fact not funny. And though Data's delivery isn't great, the Doctor's second opinion joke actually is funny. Guinan has a terrible ear for jokes.
I totally agree with that because I'm like, Guinan, that sucked. And then like when Data did his joke about the second opinion, like I thought that was legitimately funny. Like hearing it again, you're a droid. I'm annoyed. Like even I wanted to say humanoid, but like it doesn't come off that way.
It wasn't that great.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Go ahead.
I find this one interesting. I think this is pronounced HR. You can let us know if I'm wrong. Surefire signs that Star Trek is taking over your life. Number 17. The Outrageous Okana seems like a fine piece of writing and dramatic stylistics. Maybe Star Trek is taking over our lives because we liked this episode, but I'm honestly okay with that.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode, and I love going into episodes blind, and it's like I would hate to like know what other people think about it before going in. And that's, but it's tough because, I go to the movie sometimes and I look up, is this worth going to see? But like with this, it's like there's no risk because I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah, because I think the great thing about being committed to doing this, I mean, sure, we could just stop anytime we wanted, but in theory, we're committed to doing this. So there's no reason to find out what other people think beforehand because we're going to do it.
Exactly, yeah.
For a new release movie, yeah, if something has a bad critic and audience rating, I probably won't want to waste my time watching it.
Yeah, it's cold outside. You got to warm up your car. You got to look up times. You have other stuff to do in the day, but it's like, this is set. We do this twice a week. You know what I mean? It's like, and I love that. But like, yeah, this is great.